The story of Bromley House Library. The door on Angel Row. On Angel Row there is a door. It is the door to a townhouse built in 1752 to enhance the status and reputation of a wealthy banker and his aristocratic wife. For the next 68 years, this elegant building witnessed the turbulent history of the Smith family, with its decline from the genteel world of refined society to the tumult of scandal and secrets, gains and losses of great fortune, criminal acts, imprisonment, divorce and disputed legacies. The door on Angel Row was forced to close in 1820, and the house, in a state of neglect, was put up for auction. That same door was to open a year later, revealing a new world of enlightenment of knowledge, of science and philosophy, theology and literature, and of many, many stories. The story of how a gracious Georgian townhouse became a captivating subscription library is the story of Bromley House. The best built house in town. In 1746, banker George Smith commissioned a Palladian-style house to be built for himself and his wife Mary, a direct descendant of James I. The house, probably built in 1752, was described at the time as the best built house in town. Smith became a baronet and died in 1769. He was succeeded by his son, also named George. In 1778, the second Sir George Smith changed his surname to Bromley in the expectation of inheriting a fortune from a relative who had no male heir. But in 1791, the family fortunes were diminished when Sir George was accused by a male servant of attempting to commit an unnatural crime. He was imprisoned for 2 years and his wife divorced him, seizing back her substantial marriage settlement. The house was mortgaged and by 1804 it was occupied by his cousin Thomas Smith. Miss Abigail Gawthorne, a young lady of Nottingham society, visited the house that year. She noted in her diary, 18th April 1804, snowed, at a sandwich party at Mr. Thomas Smith's Bromley house, above 50 people. Captain Fothergill intoxicated and behaved rude to Mr. Ray. Mr. Ray was a dancing teacher who features quite frequently in Miss Gawthorne's diary. In 1808, Sir George died and disputes over his will cast uncertainty over the future of Bromley House, which fell into a state of neglect. Bromley House becomes a library. While the disputes over Bromley House continued, the establishment of the Nottingham subscription library began. Nottingham solicitor John Pearson sought the patronage of the Duke of Newcastle, Lord Lieutenant of the county, on behalf of a group of local gentlemen who hoped to establish a public library and newsroom. The library opened in 1816 with 169 members, including 9 women. It soon became so popular that larger premises were needed, and when the Smith family put Bromley House up for auction in 1820, it was bought for the sum of £2,750 by the library. The library moved into Bromley House in 1821. It had a large collection of books and included a newsroom and a billiard room. It let rooms to a chess club, a ladies' Bible society, and the Nottingham Literary and Scientific Society, which was considered to be so elitist it was lampooned in the local press. A dancing class was run by Catherine Turner, a passionate supporter of girls' education and women's suffrage, who was the cousin of the writer and social theorist Harriet Martineau. The building. The house has a 5-bay facade and originally included a basement fitted with a laundry room, servants' hall, wine vaults and a brew house. It also had an extensive walled garden, which is today a refuge of quiet in the busy city centre. The doorways onto the street and garden have graceful fanlights which illuminate the entrance hall, while a hexagonal cupola set in the roof of the hallway allows daylight to stream down onto the staircase below. A reading gallery was installed in 1844, and a spiral staircase was added to connect the gallery and the main reading room in 1857. The staircase is particularly unusual as it has no central pillar. Instead, it's a self-supporting structure whose weight is carried by its steps as it twists and rises to the gallery, where it is secured by bolts. The torsion of the handrail follows the movement of the steps in a harmonious and graceful sweeping curve. A meridian line made from brass and wood was laid down in the standfast room in 1834, which indicates solar noon or local apparent noon. Gas lighting was installed in 1868, and 6 London plane trees were planted in the walled garden in 1875, 3 of which are still flourishing today. Library or museum? During its early years, there was some discussion concerning the main direction of interest within the building. In 1823, a Mr. Richardson donated the proboscis of a swordfish to the library's collections, and in 1824 the Nottingham Geological and Mineral Society held its collection of minerals and fossils in the building. Over the next few years, a variety of donations and exhibits, some more welcome than others, led to the question, was Bromley House a library or a museum? In 1824, the Duke of Newcastle presented his collection of botanical specimens from the Pyrenees, and in 1827 the Reverend Richard Alliot gave specimens of cloth from the Sandwich Islands and of asbestos from South Africa. In 1831, a museum of curiosities was offered to the library, but the committee invoked its constitution, which stated that its prime object was to be a library. With the exceptions of accepting an Eastern manuscript and some ornaments from a Turkish mosque in 1833, and the startling donation in 1834 of an African elephant skin, the library's museum tendencies came to an end. The donor of the elephant skin, Mr. Churchill, was aboard the SS Forfarshire when she ran aground off the Farne Islands in 1838. Sadly, he perished, despite the celebrated rescue efforts of lighthouse keeper William Darling and his daughter Grace. Notable members. In 1823, George Green, the son of a miller, became a member of the library, which gave him access to a range of scientific literature and introduced him to influential scholars and academics who supported him in his studies. He went on to study at Cambridge, and his mathematical work relating to nuclear physics is still in use today. In 1841, the library's attics became the first photographic studio in the East Midlands, when they were rented by Alfred Barber, a pioneer of the daguerreotype. They were later occupied by Sylvanus Redgate, whose cartes de visite were hugely popular. In 1851, Samuel Newham, president of the library, competed in the first international chess championships in London. Anthony Mandela, member of Bromley House Library from 1850 to 1873, was the Liberal MP for Sheffield. An influential supporter of acts decriminalising trade unions, he was also deeply concerned with the welfare of children, advocating free compulsory education. He was primarily responsible for the passing of the Factory Act in 1875, protecting children's rights in the workplace, and a marble bust commemorating his work stands in the library's hallway. Odd occurrences. In 1840, the billiard room was closed due to the rowdy behaviour of its members, following repeated complaints about the firing of guns and pistols in the garden and the billiard room. An abandoned baby was found in the library in 1848. There was much acrimonious dispute over the exact location of the poor mite's discovery. because responsibility for the baby's upkeep had to be taken by the church in whose parish they were found. And the parish boundary lines of the two churches in the centre of Nottingham, St Peter's and St Nicholas, ran through the middle of the building, and neither church really wanted the responsibility. Scandal in the shelves. Bromley House is a world of its own. Winding staircases, unexpected doorways and bewildering passageways transport you to endless rows of shelves, holding countless secrets of their own, waiting to be discovered. In 1926, a book entitled The Butcher Shop by Jean Devaney was withdrawn from the library's stock on the grounds that it was an unsuitable book to circulate. It must have been a controversial choice when originally added to the library's shelves, as it is a frank portrayal of the brutality of New Zealand farm life, and had been banned in its native country for being disgusting, indecent and communistic. An edition of D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover, published by Martin Secker of London in 1932, was chosen for the library by the book committee, one of whose members was Dr. Edith Beckett, who taught Lawrence at University College, Nottingham. The full text of the novel had been published privately in 1928 in Italy, but was not available in England until 1960, following the notorious obscenity trial. However, the 1932 Secker edition seems to have been a spirited attempt to present the novel, circumventing the explicitly graphic descriptions and frank use of language in Lawrence's text by altering or omitting words and phrases, and cutting out one chapter altogether. It is one of the many unexpected treasures to be found on our shelves. Ghosts behind the door. The history of the house still haunts the library. In its attics you can see gypsum floors underlaid with straw, which reduce the noise from the footsteps of the servants who slept there. An ornate gas mantle survives in the plate room, and where the plaster has crumbled away from its walls, the rushes used in its construction are revealed. In the dark room, a pane of dark red glass throws its flaming light on the spot where the Victorian photographers once worked. Elaborate fireplaces and intricate cornices decorate the grander rooms where parties were held for the finest society of the town. Today, the library lives in close harmony with its ghosts, and floor-to-ceiling shelves, overflowing with books, fill the rooms where those shadows once walked. Now, in its 4th century, the door on Angel Row is still open.